Like to call the June 8th regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Post Falls to order. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Again, to reiterate what was mentioned earlier, please make sure that your phones are turned off or at least on silent. If you need to take a call, you can step out. And if you do wish to speak tonight, make sure that you fill the paperwork out and bring it up front. We'll go ahead and get things going and start with roll call.
Hamby.
Here.
Schlauhauer.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Kimball.
Here.
Stephenson.
Here.
All right. Mr. Manley, any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There's none.
Do we have any ceremonies, announcements, appointments, presentations, or anything else?
None.
Okay. Commissioners, any declaration of conflict this evening?
None. None. None.
No.
Okay. Then hearing, we will go to the consent calendar. John, go ahead.
Yeah. Item A is the meeting minutes from May 11th, 2021. Item B is special meeting minutes from May 14th, 2021. Item C is the zoning recommendation for Jacqueline Riverbend, file number ANNX3, 2021. And item D is the reasoned decision for Foxdale PUD amendment, file number PUD2, 2021.
All right. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review. Any questions? Hearing none, I would look for a motion.
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Stephenson.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Schlauhauer.
Yes.
Hamby.
Yes.
All right, citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is not on this evening's agenda. Please note, comments on issues that are planned for future agenda meetings, we ask that you hold until that meeting. Do we have anyone wishing to speak regarding citizen issues? Okay, seeing none. No unfinished or old business, correct?
That would be correct.
That will bring us to our public hearing portion of the evening. Again, we will hear from staff, followed by the applicant. Then we'll have our community time to speak, followed by rebuttal if necessary. That's the order that we'll go in. We'll go ahead and open it up.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. Laura Jones, Associate Planner with the City of Post Falls, presenting the GONDO annexation. The property owners are Edward and Sarah Gondo. They are the business owners, or excuse me, they own the business Barn 31, which is currently located on Saltese and Greensferry. And if the annexation is approved, they will relocate their business to the subject property. Sorry. The applicant is Sarah Gondo, and the requested action tonight is to make recommendation to City Council for the zoning designation of community commercial services on 4.6 acres as part of an annexation request into the City of Post Falls. Their site is located on the southwest corner of Prairie and Greensferry, noted on the map in red. The site is currently developed with the Gondo residents and their accessory structures. The site is located over the Rathdrum Prairie and the aquifer. However, these features should not hinder further development. The water provider is Ross Point Water District, and the City of Post Falls will provide sewer. To the north and south of the site is undeveloped, it's unincorporated Kootenai County properties, and they are developed with single-family homes. To the east is an undeveloped property in the unincorporated Kootenai County area. That's owned by Fivefold Ministries, and they have come forward with a pre-application for a potential annexation request in the near future. Then to the west is North Place subdivision. That is currently in review for a zone change going from single-family residence to residential mixed. Looking at other commercial activity in the area, to the east is Green Meadows North, and there is a proposed zone change there also for CCS, Community Commercial Services, on 1.03 acres on the east side of Lynn Street, which is this area. On the preliminary plat, it was shown as 4 parcels. For a final plat, they'll consolidate it, and it will be 1 parcel if the CCS zoning is approved. There is existing CCS zoning on the on the east side of Lynn on those 4 commercial lots fronting Prairie. So North Place zone change goes before City Council on July 6th, and Green Meadows North zone change goes through City Council on August 3rd. So there is some commercial happening in the area, and that red circle, dash circle, is the commercial activity node shown in the future land use map. Looking at zone change review criteria for an annexation, there's 6 of them. The first is that amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the future land use map. The future land use designation is transitional, and the property, as we just saw, is within a commercial activity node. Here's the future land use map. The blue is the transitional designation. The yellow is low density residential designation, and then again the commercial activity node that's centered on the Prairie Greens Ferry intersection. The transitional designation in the comprehensive plan states that assigned zones should be compatible with adjacent zones and uses within the city and consistent with the guiding principles within the associated focus area. The comprehensive plan calls out the focus area affiliated with the property as the Central Island focus area. The Central Island currently consists of mixed uses or mixed properties. You know, some are in with the city limits, some are still unincorporated Kootenai County. So it's kind of a patchwork system. And the comp plan calls out that challenges will include struggles to match and blend street network, design and connection, ensure land use compatibility, and orchestrating improvements to utility systems. And then 2 of the key policies for the Central Island focus area are to prioritize annexation opportunities and focus provisions for commercial uses along arterial and collector streets. The comprehensive plan states that commercial activity nodes is intended to encourage commercial activities to occur at major transportation nodes to complement the overall community. These nodes would consist of a variety of retail, office, and other commercial services to be integrated into the nearby community with the intent to create a focal point of vibrancy conveniently located near neighborhoods and other commercial services along nearby arterial and collector streets. So looking at the intent of the transitional designation Central Island focus area and the commercial activity node, that would meet the intent of the first zone change review criteria. Second is that it is consistent with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. Staff reviewed multiple goals and policies, but the first goal to grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health, as well as Goal 7, to plan for and establish types and quantities of land uses in Post Falls, supporting community needs and the city's long-term sustainability. These were the 2 most relevant goals for the project. In order to meet these goals, the comprehensive plan outlines a list of policies. Policy 45 is regarding annexations, and that it requests to guide annexation decisions guided by and considering environmental necessary rights of, or excuse me, environmental, oh, sorry, I lost my spot here. There we go. I'm going to start over on this one. Policy 45 is to guide annexation decisions guided by infrastructure, rights of way and easements, environmental and public service factors, timing, and goals and policies within the comprehensive plan. Most of these are outlined in the review criteria, so I'm going to get into that in the following slides. Third zone change review criteria is that zoning is assigned following consideration of such items as street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographic and natural features. Engineering staff in the staff report has identified Prairie as a critical arterial corridor, and they are estimating that by 2035, it will be constructed with 5 lanes and accommodating 10,000 vehicles per day. Greens Ferry by 2035 is estimated to accommodate 6,000 vehicles per day and be built out to a 3-lane arterial. Sanitary sewer is located roughly 330 feet to the south at Corinne Lane in the Green Meadows East subdivision. The applicant will be responsible for bringing sewer to and through their site. And then, as previously mentioned, the water provider is Ross Point Water District, and a will serve letter has been provided stating that they will serve both domestic and irrigation water. The next zone change review criteria is that commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with a higher road classification. As just mentioned, Prairie is a critical arterial corridor, and Greens Ferry is a minor arterial. The zoning designation is supported for the property by the higher road classification and the commercial activity node, and it supports that zone change review criteria. Next is that limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential zoning is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from the higher intensity urban activity. The properties typically are mostly surrounded with single-family residential subdivisions and homes. However, the commercial presence in Greens Ferry North, the potential neighborhood commercial in North Place support this zone change review criteria. And then the last is dealing with industrial zoning, which is not applicable. The applicant is not asking for industrial zoning, and there is not an industrial zone property or use within the vicinity. This is a list of the agencies that were notified on the project and given a chance to comment. 3 agencies responded. Post Falls Police Department was neutral. Post Falls Highway District was neutral, although they did request that the City of Post Falls take over the traffic signal at the intersection of Prairie and Greens Ferry. And they also request that the city annex the entire width of both right-of-ways, Greens Ferry and Prairie. That is standard practice when the city does annex property. So it's nothing new, and basically they are neutral. The Idaho Department of Environmental Quality had general comments that will be relevant at the time of construction and when they go through their site plan review process. I can take any questions.
Questions?
In the last slide, when you, the Highway District asked that, request that the City of Post Falls take over the traffic signal, you said that that was something that was just normal, that was usually done, so there's no problem with that. The city has...
Correct. I spoke with Rob Paulus about it before the meeting, and he basically said that we always annex the entire width of the right-of-way. The applicant typically only does improvements for half of the right-of-way plus 10 feet
Okay.
on the other, on the opposite side of the center line. But we do annex the full width. And so if we're annexing the full width of Prairie and the full width of Greens Ferry, that stoplight would be in our jurisdiction.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think I just had one quick housekeeping item. I think one of those slides said it was the Central Island. I think the staff report says North Prairie.
It's the Central Prairie.
Central Prairie, excuse
Central
me.
Prairie? Do I have
Central
both of them
Prairie.
wrong?
I think Central Prairie is the correct one.
Yeah, the staff report is cited correctly.
Correct,
and
okay,
notified.
yeah, okay.
It's just, yeah, I was gonna bring up that clarification and then to clarify that the proposed focus area of the Central Prairie, the proposal is consistent with that also. So
Okay.
within the Central Prairie, it encourages commercial along Prairie Avenue, especially when you have more than 4,000 vehicle trips per day. Additionally, it encourages other higher end uses along Prairie Avenue. So
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for catching that.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have.
Thank you. Okay, we'll invite the applicant up.
I don't think so. I think I'm gonna use it for space.
John, let's see how this works.
Make sure that I sent over already.
Thanks for the heads up.
Just need you to state your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Sarah Gondo, and my address is 9766 West Prairie Avenue. And my husband and I are the property owners and the applicants. I just kind of wanted to explain what business model and kind of what we want to do with the property, that we're not just shoving a 7-Eleven or something in there. It's a kind of an agritourism business. When we purchased the property 7 years ago, we had no intention of doing anything but living in it. So as the city has developed and things are moving along, it seems like a really good mix, or a good match for our business. So we started 4 years ago on our property just selling Christmas trees, and we did some paint classes on our barn, just as sort of a small thing, and it kind of grew from there. We had gone to the county and asked for a conditional use permit to do what we wanted to do there. We couldn't do it because we're on the aquifer. So that was 2 years ago. So we signed a commercial lease, and if you've lived here for any length of time, we're in the old Steve Sports Dugout building. You can always tell how long somebody's lived here when you ask them that. So we've been there for 2 years, and it's it's a DIY workshop. If you don't know what that is, a lot of people are confused by that, but people come to workshops 3 or 4 nights a week. We host them there, and they make things for their house. That's the easiest way to put it. We also have a retail store, and we sell all kinds of gifts and clothes and baby items and home decor and vintage things. We have a homeschool arts and crafts program that meets 2 days a week that we kind of started this last year that's gone really well. So those are all things that we'd like to expand on. So by moving out to our property, we can do that. So we'd like to have a pumpkin patch and the tree farm and kind of a farmer's market thing here and there. The building that we're looking at, you'll see that's kind of my attempt at a mock-up. It's going to be about 6,000 to 7,000 square feet, with a third of it being retail, a third of it being a restaurant, just a brunchery, and then a third being kind of the workshop space that we would use for the stuff we're doing now and more. We'd like to have home ec classes and gardening classes and different community kind of things in there. We'd also like to add a coffee stand. Currently, there is no coffee stand between the beginning of Prairie until you get all the way to Coeur d'Alene, which is crazy because that's such a busy street. So that's kind of what we're doing there, what we'd like to do, and the short version. So it's, I think, a good fit for the Prairie. We plan to have plenty of open space, picnic tables, yard games, that kind of stuff. So it's a place that people can bring their family and enjoy a day out or an afternoon there. So I
Perfect.
think that's it.
Questions at all for applicant?
No.
No? All right, we're good. Thank you very much. Public comment. Those in favor?
None.
Those against, or in neutral, I should say.
None.
Those against?
None.
All right. So there would be no need to come back for any counterpoints. So do we have any questions, commissioners, for applicant, staff? Anyone, before we close this out?
Nope.
None? Okay, then we'll go ahead and close it out. I'll open it for comment. Start with you, Nancy.
Well, I think it's a great fit. I think we need more things like that, little commercial nodes where people can actually go and do something, not, like she said, not just a convenience store, but where people can actually go and do something. And I've actually been to the little craft thing at Barn 31, and it was absolutely wonderful. So I think it's something that definitely the community could use more of, and I think it's a great fit.
Excellent. Ross, anything to add?
No, I think it's a good fit too. It'll be fun to see how the node works, and I think it'll be a nice fit for their business. And wish them luck.
Yeah. Perfect.
I love the barn. No, I think it's a great fit too. I think it stops people from driving all the way down to Celtice or all the way into Coeur d'Alene, and it, less miles traveled is always better for everybody. We love it. I like it.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of where, residential development as it's happening and kind of moving out into the prairie, and it shows that there's a need for these little commercial nodes to supply little services or things like that for the neighborhoods that are growing and developing out there. Comprehensive plan is really specific about that intersection, saying, hey, it should be a commercial node, it should be a higher intensity. Those are both Greens Ferry and Prairie Avenue are arterials. They're going to be really, really busy streets. It's probably the absolute perfect place for commercial zoning.
Yep.
And I think that's the absolute appropriate thing there.
Can I be a part of this, since I wasn't here for, was there any
Yeah, I think that you've reviewed the staff report.
yeah. Was there anything
We're able to hear from the applicant.
outstanding that was different from what's in the report? No?
None.
Okay. I apologize to everybody for being late. I just forgot that we started earlier now. I was right on the off-ramp. I went,
In some groups, there are fines when that happens, but
so I apologize to all of you. Yes, I had thoroughly reviewed this before, and I thought it was a great fit, so I have no issues with it. I think it would do good.
Yeah, I agree with everyone else. I think it's a good fit. Nice little commercial node as you get in the northern part of town. There's not much out there, and we're starting to get that. I do like that intersection already has a light, so that's a benefit to that area. If there's going to be more commercial on either side of Greens Ferry there, so I think it's a really good fit right there.
yeah, I'm super excited about it. The idea of having something close to home that we can go and support. And get me wrong, I'm sure people love to go up and deal with the crowds of Green Bluff, but to have something right here, that's absolutely fantastic. So unless there's any other comment, I would look for a motion at this time.
I would move to recommend approval of the GONDO annexation file number ANNX 0009-2021, finding that it meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code 18.16.010 and 18.20.100 as outlined in our conversations. With regards to the staff report, and direct staff to prepare a zoning recommendation for CCS zone and incorporate the 3 items included in the staff report 1, 2, and 3 for inclusion in the annexation agreement.
Second.
Up. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? A call for a vote.
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauhauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
All right. That being said, then we will go ahead. Looks like John's already ready to go. So we'll go ahead and open the next public hearing.
Dinner's ready.
Take it away.
Yes, John Manley, Planning Manager here at the City of Post Falls, introducing the Tullamore 9th Zone Change, case file RZNE 5, 2021. The applicant is Drew Dittman of Lake City Engineering, representing Copper Basin Construction, Inc. Their ask is for a rezone of approximately 47 acres from community commercial services to the requested community commercial mixed zoning district. So the CCS zoning district is the typical commercial district you see up and down Southeast Way that you're used to. The community commercial mixed is a new zoning district that allows some different uses and some different rights. And I'll kind of go into that as I go through this presentation. The location of this is to the west of 41, south of the Prairie Avenue 41 intersection. Most of it is south of Killdeer with a little piece just north of Killdeer, just west of 41, as I mentioned. Current land use and characteristics, it's mostly underdeveloped lands that's intended to be developed sometime in the future. Water provider is the Ross Point Water District with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls. We look at the 6 zone change criteria. We're looking, is the proposal, is it consistent in accordance with the comprehensive plan and land use map? Is it looking at the goals and policies of the comp plan, is it consistent with it? Additionally, does the proposed change prove any complications with street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographical natural features? This site has no known geographical or natural features that would encumber development on this site. And regarding the Highway 41 corridor plan, nothing about that plan and the proposal would be inconsistent with that corridor plan. In the staff report, you saw some analysis that the proposal, there is no encumbrance as far as street classifications or traffic patterns either with the proposed zone change. Looking at the future land use map, you can see here for future land use designations, business commercial, that's the pink, and we have the red, that's commercial. The big difference for the pink and the red is in the red areas, it's specified as more discouraging for multifamily. So they're areas that are preserved for pure commercial without having some multifamily. As part of the comp plan update, there was some workshops, a multitude of workshops, and there was a ask of providing more direction regarding different types of housing and where it could or couldn't go. So that's how it kind of manifested in the different colors within the commercial. Similarly, you can see the different colors in yellow. That was also part of that comp plan, looking in the efforts, looking at different densities and where they may be or less appropriate for different types of housing. This is the existing zoning. You see the sea of red and sea of yellow. That's representation of our old methodology and our old comp plan where we really only had very limited zoning districts and very limited classifications for a future land use map. So looking at that business commercial, that change in the comp plan, we look at this and it says that, it provides a wide variety of different types of retail and professional office, very similar to the other CCS, but it does go on to say it promotes a mixture of moderate to high density housing within walking distance of corridor commercial, as well as civic uses and other amenities within Post Falls. And this was specifically through that comp plan update that more or less recently was discussed. And as far as encouraging some independence for individuals who may be residing in medium densities, having some amenities nearby, and potentially transit. So you're looking at here is the proposed, we actually have a subdivision, a commercial subdivision that we're processing. So we have this platting layout where I have the cursor here. That is intended to go to a school district or to a private school, I should say. The yellow, those are the lots that the developer or this applicant intends to, with the CCM, you get granted up to 50% of the land multifamily. So that's part of the trade-off is kind of looking at different zoning districts that you have. So this, though, equates to 14.5. So out of the 47, it's about a third of the land mass. So they're less. And they're okay with conditioning those lots to only provide the multifamily. That does a couple things. That assures, I know in other public hearings, there's been comments regarding the infamous special use permit in the CCS. That's, the CCM ends that because within a development agreement is what accompanies a CCM zoning district. It ultimately goes to city council. They review the conditions as part of that development agreement. So that goes with that final decision. Tonight, we're just recommending a zone to city council. So what you see here, and we'll go back to the previous, promotes a mixture of moderate to high density housing within walking distance. You got commercial uses as well as civic uses. And going back to the map, you got Tullamore Park, future regional park, the intent to put a north-south pedestrian corridor, commercial uses along 41. Staff would determine from a planning standpoint that their proposal for CCM is aligned with the goals and policies of the comp plan. Additionally, you look at the business commercial. What is the principal uses and character? It says supports a mixture of housing types built at moderate density, at least 8 units per acre. So it goes on and further says there should be at least a minimum benchmark within that corridor. And a lot of that is to support commercial development. You need to have a decent amount of rooftops in close proximity to commercial, creating that work, live, walk community. It goes in looking at the implementing zoning districts as both CCS and CCM. So both zoning districts are consistent with the business commercial. If it was CCS, one would deduce that down the road you would get a special use permit for certain areas, and some of the same dialogue that's being presented tonight from staff would be presented as part of that special use permit. Be two paths to get to the same spot. As I mentioned, with this one though, the paths are going to be restricted because with that development agreement, the current owner nor the city would entertain a special use permit outside of what would maybe in that development agreement. So in some aspects, the CCM is more restrictive than the CCS. Looking at the 41 North commercial, you look at this as a focus area, and the reason for this was there's still a lot of undeveloped periphery lands and stuff even within Post Falls. We have the county pockets and whatnot. Dividing it up into sub-areas, so if we ever needed to have a sub-area plan, we've already kind of created containers for refining the vision. So for this one, for the 41 North commercial corridor, focus multifamily for commercial tech use, focus provisions for multifamily, commercial and tech uses near higher classified roadways. So that would be the case here. I mean, you're within close proximity of Highway 41, which is going to, as we all know, is being widened. Also focus provisions for commercial uses, and it leaves out multifamily in this case, along, so it switched from near to along arterial collector streets where traffic volume exceeds 4,000 vehicle trips per day. Once again, looking at that map and the intent, these commercial lots will be along and the proposed multifamily is near Highway 41. Comp plan goals: grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health. Housing plays a key role in that. Without housing, you don't get job growth. And without housing, you also don't get commercial growth. And they kind of work together systematically. Plan for and establish types of quantity of land uses in Post Falls, supporting community needs and city's long-term sustainability. One of the aspects I see here is with the commercial growth, with the tech park up north, eventually having transit up and down Highway 41 is going to be a valuable amenity to that corridor. It's currently not there, but rooftops are more unlikely in users. You need ride share in order to get it to come to fruition. So development along 41 will assist creating opportunities for independence from vehicles and sustainability. Looking at the policies, support land use patterns that maintain and enhance community levels of service. Kind of talked about some other means, but how it's done through the financing aspect is impact fees are paid at time of permit, pays for streets, public safety, and parks. Foster long-term fiscal health. I've kind of talked about that one with the proximity to some of the amenities nearby and commercial services. Maintain and enhance residential quality of life. Odds are, if you're an individual that likes half-acre lots or larger, you're not interested in living at this location. So you're probably, if you're interested in residing here, you've probably accepted a 30 acre or less, and you're looking for the type of amenities for that quality of life that is along 41. Promote compatible, well-designed development. Staff would view that the fact that you have the amenities and the multitude of kinds between potential commercial and civic, and with the trail connectivity in the parks, that this would be a well-designed development. Last one, the staff report and all these policies address implementing the goals and policies of the comp plan. Apply or revise zoning designations with careful considerations of the factors. So here, this is specific to revising, and that's what this event is, or the ask is tonight. We look at the future land use mapping that's been addressed, compatibility with surrounding land uses. We got multifamily currently to the south, you have a park, high density detached single family to the west, row housing, commercial. You have some detached small lot development with some multifamily. So this location is pretty much surrounded by either a private school or other compatible commercial or residential uses. infrastructure and service plans, and existing future traffic plans. So in the staff report, you've seen the engineering staff talk about the applicability and appropriateness in regards to its compatibility with those aspects. And then, once again, we're back to the goals and policies of the comp plan. The last three for zone change criteria, commercial and high-density residential is typically assigned along streets of higher classifications. That was addressed. Limited or neighborhood commercial or low density is typically assigned as you proceed farther away from higher intense urban areas or urban corridors, you could say. And that would not be the case, so that would not be appropriate, nor is it the ask. And then the other one is industrial zoning, and that's not being asked, so that wouldn't be applicable. Agencies notified is as you see here. You can see how the school district's notified, Panhandle Health, we got utilities, gas, so fire. We heard from the highway district, they had no comment. The Department of Environmental Quality did comment, they just had construction-related comments. So I stand for any questions you have for staff regarding the proposal and how it meets the comp plan and the criteria.
I just have a question. The properties to the west that are row housing, is that a detached or an attached product?
Those are detached platted product.
Small lot?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
How many acres are they proposing for the high density?
I believe they highlighted in yellow, and Drew can correct me, I believe it was like around 14 and a half acres on 3 lots.
Okay.
Other questions for staff?
John, I seem to remember that when they did that, came forward with that preliminary plat for that, there was a buffer green strip in between the yellow and the existing housing to the west. Do you recall how wide that is?
Once again, I do not know the width of that green step separating these single-family product and the multifamily. I apologize for that. I'm pretty sure Drew.
That's fine.
I'm pretty sure
I'll
Drew.
say-
I'll ask the same question of the applicant.
I do want to add one thing that I forgot to mention. This area was part of the Tullamore PUD. We did recently amend that, and this area was removed from that PUD. The reason being for that, and the primary premise and justification, was all that was left was the CCS zone properties. There was nothing in that PUD that provided guidance to the CCS. So more or less, the Copper Basin removed the parcels that they owned and retracted it down to, I believe, Hope or Early Dawn.
So I think that in the CCM, there's open space requirements.
This is correct, the 7% open space. They did provide as part of the Tullamore, the regional part, they assisted with the regional park and the Tullamore Park. And they're required to have open space as far as the multifamily. So it's 150 square feet per unit, and then 150 for each 1-bedroom unit, 300 square feet for each 2-bedroom plus.
Okay.
Other questions? No? All right, invite the applicant up. Thank you, sir.
Need help getting to yours?
Shouldn't. Good evening, Chairman Davis, fellow commissioners. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, 126 East Poplar Avenue in the city of Coeur d'Alene. John covered probably most everything I wanted to, so I'm going to reiterate a few things, elaborate on a few things, and I'm sure you guys have some questions for me as well. So again, here's the property. You can see this would be the entire Tullamore project. Mouse is a little touchy today. So you have pole line here, Highway 41 here, Prairie Avenue up here, and this is Cecil running down here. So the property in question I've highlighted in red here. I was in front of you guys a few months ago with the Tullamore 9th subdivision that John had mentioned. I've got a slide I'll show in a minute that shows what we did there. John went through all of this stuff. I'm not going to go through it. If you got questions on it, we can ask John or you can ask me when we're done, but I think he did a great job covering it. It's in the staff report as well. So here's the current zoning. The red is CCS, the yellow is R1, and you can kind of see outlined in blue there the property in question right in here that we're looking to. There's 4 parcels. You have a parcel here, a big parcel here, and 2 parcels down here. We did do the preliminary plat. We haven't recorded that yet, so we still only have the 4 parcels in question. It's about 45.2 acres, currently zoned CCS. We're asking for the community commercial mixed zoning. So here's the subdivision that you guys saw a few months ago. If you remember, it's the extension of Bogey Drive from Killdeer down to Hope. We've got several acre and a half commercial lots fronting Highway 41, and then we had 4 larger lots to the west of Bogey. As John had indicated, the Elevate Academy private school is going in here. They will be submitting site plan here shortly, so that's exciting to see that school go in. Those guys want to break ground early spring and get that thing going, which is really exciting. With the CCM zone, we are allowed up to 50% multifamily. As John had said, that would be 22.6 acres. That's too much. We know that. We're willing to cut that back and say we don't want to see any multifamily along the 41 commercial corridor. It doesn't belong there. That should be true commercial. We understand that. We're willing to limit any future commercial to the area shown in red, which is about 14.5 acres. So it's, I don't know, it's under 30% of that allowable percentage. We're also willing to cap that to 250 acres. Again, with the CCM zoning, a development agreement is required. We need to negotiate that with staff, and at the city council level, we can put those conditions into that development agreement. We're also willing to put the condition in there that no multifamily building permits will be pulled until Highway 41 frontage improvements are complete. We know that's a hot topic issue with you guys and with council, so we're willing to do that. And we're not saying that multifamily is going to go there. We're saying there's a potential for multifamily to go there, and we want to limit the amount of multifamily. As John said, with the CCS zoning, it's allowed. You can come in with special use permits to get the multifamily use, and we don't want to see that. We don't want a bunch of different people as we sell lots to come in with different multifamily uses where they don't belong. It is a good buffer. We do have the cottage product here. John calls it row housing. We call it cottage product, but it's smaller detached units here. So any kind of multifamily would provide a good buffer between that detached housing and the commercial uses. We also have the trail. This mouse is super touchy. Right here that comes down, it's about 50 feet wide at the top here, Ray, and it's almost 100 feet wide down here at the bottom. That will provide connectivity from the multifamily to the north all the way down to the park and for the school as well. So that's good connectivity that would count towards our open space requirements. I don't know the exact percentages off the top of my head, Ray, but we'll figure that stuff out as we get in front of city council and go through the processes. Make sure I covered everything I wanted to. Yeah, I think that's it. I'll have stand for questions if you have
Questions?
for me.
I just am curious, if you have no intention of any of the things fronting 41 to be used as multifamily, why the need to change the zoning on that portion?
Because if we don't, it stays CCS. CCS allows the multifamily through the special use permit process. If we do this zone change and we change it, multifamily will not be allowed at all in there because the development agreement will say that you can't do it
That will
there.
be stated in the development agreement
Correct.
that there's no multifamily? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Mr. Dittman, thank you. Community comment, those in favor,
None.
those neutral,
None.
those against.
What?
In opposition, wishing to speak, Mr. Flowers. Mr. Flowers, come on up.
Bob Flowers, 3914 East Maplewood Avenue, Post Falls. Good evening, Commissioners. Well, I've heard all the legal jargon on why this qualifies for a zone change, but I think the first question that should be asked is, how does this zone change benefit the current residents of Post Falls? And to be honest, I can't find one reason that it would benefit the current residents at all. The only person that I can see this benefiting is the developer, because they can build more multifamily high-density housing in the city of Post Falls. Why do they want the zone change? Basically, because they can't do multifamily high density with the current zoning they have. Not without a special use permit, which means coming in front of everybody again. That's the only reason they're really here, is so they can build more apartments for whoever. But does this benefit the current residents of Post Falls? Not one bit. None at all. And I would strongly suggest that you turn down this zone change, because it doesn't benefit anybody that lives here. Nobody at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Mr. Dittman, rebuttal.
Chairman Davis, Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, for the record. I would say that, and John, I think even touched on it in the staff report and in his presentation, the CCS zone is almost actually more restrictive. Excuse me, the CCM zone is almost more restrictive than the CCS in this aspect, because we are limiting the amount of multifamily. We're saying we're capping it. It goes on these 14.5 acres only, and we're limiting it to 250 units. If it's CCS, you could see special use permits on all 45.2 acres, times 18 units to the acre. That's, I don't know the number off the top of my head, it's a big number. We're limited to 30%, we're allowed 50%, we're limited to 30%, and we're putting it and isolating it in a location where we think best fits that project. It buffers the existing single-family homes to the commercial uses. And it's on great transportation corridors. The other thing is with the CCM zoning, you do get, as Commissioner Kimball pointed out, you get the 7% open space requirement, whereas with the CCS, that wouldn't be a requirement. So there are some benefits to the public and the residents of Tullamore, in our opinion.
Excellent. Any questions for applicant?
Nope.
Nope. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I just got a quick one, probably maybe for legal. In the staff report, it doesn't really talk about the development agreement or anything that should be included. Should any of that be included in a recommendation to City Council, or is that something that needs to be dealt, or City Council will deal with?
It would be something that City Council would deal with, but it's a requirement of the overlaying zone. So it's in the code. By adopting the zone, you're putting that in there because it's in the zoning code, in the Post Falls Municipal Code.
So as I understand it, then they'll have to, for any CCM zone, after a zone change from whatever it is to CCM, if council approves that, or mixed residential, or any of those districts that require a development agreement, that development agreement is negotiated between the developer and the city council and comes back at a later
Based
council
on
new business
based
thing?
on the reasoned decisions. So basically, we'll take the reasoned decision from this meeting, whatever it may be, and if as it proceeds to City Council, we would then draw on that and then craft a development agreement with the developer before it goes to city council. And so ideally, our intent is to not schedule the public hearing for city council until we get through the crafting a development agreement based off the public process.
So our decision should be, any recommendation we make should have some sort of, we should touch on any development.
Yeah, so if you
agreement
say,
things.
let's just say you cap at 250 units, that's something you guys chose, I don't know what you guys want to do, but then we would then insert that into the development agreement that multifamily units for lots 2, 3, and 4, as per exhibit submitted by the applicant on what date, shall not exceed 250 units. And that would then go forward because that was part of the motion you guys made. And then when it gets to city council could make a different decision. And then we would then have to redraft that development agreement and bring it back as per their recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, the recommendation you give city council should include the things that you want to recommend.
Some items in the development agreement. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, makes sense. Any other questions for staff? Anyone else? None? Going once, twice? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and close it out. Ray, you want to start?
I do. So this is one of those, this is almost a down zoning. So CCS is one of our most intense zones. It's got the ability to put a big box store on any of those lots that has semi-trucks backing up at all times of the nights, loading, unloading. So I look at it from a standpoint of, if we look at the stuff that's on the highway, that absolutely 100% makes sense to be commercial use. It's close to a large population center, so it's got, there's already apartments that are there. There's higher density cottage product. There's a single family further to the west. Within a mile, there's going to be quite a bit of, there is quite a bit of residential development. And that's the kind of thing that needs to happen to support businesses like a small restaurant, a barber shop, a nail salon, small businesses that are, locally owned. Things like Barn 41, great example. You want to have people who are, or businesses need to be close to their population center and that are the clientele that are going to use them. So if that is the case in this, transportation wise, I know we've talked in the past quite a bit about the traffic that's generated by multifamily. That pales in comparison to many commercial uses. So a grocery store, based on the same square footage footprint, will generate quite a bit more traffic than an apartment complex will. So I don't see that really as that's a wash, or in any way it might even be there'd be less traffic from multifamily than some of those higher intensity commercial uses that could happen there. So I see it as appropriate. It meets the comprehensive plan. It fits, and it's kind of a down, like I said, it's kind of a down zone. I think that limiting the multifamily to those 14.5 acres and capping it at 250 units makes sense. If the developer is okay with not pulling any multifamily building permits until Highway 41 is substantially complete, or the frontage improvements are done, I think that's fine. I don't know if it matters one way or another, but I think that's fine. And I really think that having, developing that out as, finishing out the residential will really bring in the commercial growth and give people the services that are, close to their houses, and not force people to drive down to Celtice Way or Mullen in those corridors to get those services, or maybe a little restaurant or a brew pub or a haircut or whatever it ends up being. So that's my thoughts on it.
Vicki?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything with Ray. My only thought would be that just we do in the motion that we do reference the fact of the cap on the multifamily, and also that no multifamily can be built on any of the, or permits built or built on the Highway 41 parcels. But other than that, I see it as a good buffer between with the cottage houses or row houses that are being built and the single family next to that.
James?
Yeah, I agree with everybody else so far. I mean, I think it's a perfect spot. It's right on 41. I like the fact that we can get all these jobs in here, but then also limit the multifamily at the same time with this type of zoning per the development agreement. Reading the staff report, Hope and 41 will have a signal when 41 is complete. So that's a benefit to there as far as traffic goes. So I think it's a good fit there.
I think it's a good step towards affordable housing that this area needs. People are trying to define affordable housing right now, and I think it's kind of hard. But I meet people every day, that young couples that are renting, and they're investors that own their homes that bought them 20 years ago. They're selling them. I mean, the market's high. It's a good business decision to sell their houses, which leaves these families with nowhere to go. They can't afford the homes to rent right now. The rent's up, everything's up. So this is a great option. I mean, I don't want to see the town littered in apartments, but we do need affordable housing, and that's a good fit for it back in there.
Ross?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a real responsible use for that land, and I think it belongs as mixed use, and I think the CCM designation guarantees that, and so I'm in favor of it. And I do think it benefits people in town that want to have a place for a business, people in town that want to work at a business, and also the people in town that are residents currently that live with their parents, live with friends, can't afford an apartment, want to get out on their own, want to start a family. I think we need to look out for everybody in town.
Nancy?
Well, I am not a fan of apartments or high-density multifamily going where a commercial business could be. But with that said, I think that the way that these two zoning designations are set, if we put in the right language to limit where the multifamily can be built, how much multifamily can be built, and the trigger for when it can be built, I think that we're probably better off being able to put those limitations in than to have it in CCS and come to us later with a special use permit that could be all over the board. So I'm more comfortable with the CCM because we can kind of corral it in a little bit. And probably, no matter which zoning designation, there's probably going to be high density there.
Yeah, I think that if you were to say more housing options and more availability to those people that, like Ross, you said, that are living in grandma's basement, yeah, it helps the community. The commercial piece of that, it helps the community. I'm kind of bewildered with the idea that the only good growth is no growth. I look at this, and again, I think we all agree. We might not necessarily all be fans. Maybe none of us are fans of multifamily, but the reality of it is that it is needed. If it isn't, then show me the vacancy rates that are 10 and 15%. They're not less than 1%. You look at this and you say, look at the way that it's set up, look at where it's located. It is a good fit for multifamily. So to me, it makes perfect sense as well. So unless there's any other questions or thoughts, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to recommend approval of the Tullamore, I gotta make sure I get the name right. Tullamore 9th Zone Change, RZNE 0005-2021 Finding that it meets the approval criteria in Post Falls Municipal Code 18.16.010 and 18.20.100 as outlined in our deliberations. I think we need to include or recommend inclusion of a cap of the multifamily in that zone to 250 units. We should recommend a restriction of placement of that multifamily use on the 3 lots shown in the exhibit provided in the staff report and in the applicant's presentation. And I think we should include a recommendation for not allowing building permits on multifamily until the frontage improvements done by the state on Highway 41 are substantially complete.
I just want to clarify, I believe the applicant was asking for certificates of occupancy versus building permits.
I heard building permit, and I'm seeing a nod over
I
there.
heard building permit.
Then never mind.
So, although either would be fine, I think. And direct staff to prepare a zoning recommendation for CCM.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
All right. Action item number 5, administrative and staff reports. Do we have any?
That's me.
All right.
Let me get my notes pulled up here. So, good evening, Commissioners. Before you, in your packet, is some changes to our hearing procedures that will go to City Council to be adopted by resolution. The last update was back in December of 2019. Basically, it's kind of a housekeeping issue incorporating some of the changes that we've already been doing. The first big change, if you remember from the previous hearing procedures, there was a whole section on the public notice requirements of published in the newspaper. It has to be placed on the land. It has to be mailed. Basically, that's all to comply with state code and municipal code. So we've shortened that to just say we will conform with state code and the municipal code. We did also add in the requirements for the application and the staff report to be complete before the notice is published, so that it is available for review by the public. We added information as to where to submit written testimony to make it a little bit easier to point out where those avenues for public comment are. We updated the spokesperson provisions to add a little bit more guidance than was in the previous resolution. Basically, a spokesperson can speak as long as they're speaking for at least 4 people. They've got a 15-minute limit, and the group members have to be present in attendance in order to satisfy that. We also added a section on decorum in public meetings, basically addressing some of the outbursts, clapping, those kind of things, keeping this a neutral process and giving the chair or the mayor the ability to manage that a little bit better. Other than that, the procedures are generally the same. We did add the new 10 o'clock rule as far as not starting a new public hearing after 10 o'clock. And moving that to the next meeting. So that would have to be done by motion, just a motion to table to the next meeting. We won't have to renotice it because that is the notice as long as it's continued to a date certain. a little bit of updates to the decision rules. One thing that is not in this draft that we have been talking about adding is just a clarification that until the written decision comes before you, the record is still open, and sort of the ex parte rules, site visit, that kind of thing still would apply until that decision is finalized and signed. So I would take any comments,
So
questions.
that's normally then the next meeting.
For normally it's the next meeting. Generally, we try to do it within 60 days.
Okay.
So it,
But generally, that's something that we, at the next meeting, it's, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay. I had a comment, and this is something I talked to Field about just before the meeting, but it has to do with the rebuttal testimony time limit. Thankfully, it hasn't happened here in a long time, but I have been a part of public hearings where there was a 20-minute applicant presentation and about 2.5 hours of public testimony, and then an 8-minute rebuttal. Doesn't necessarily give the applicant the due process necessary to adequately rebut a lot of that testimony. So I think that maybe we can add a second footnote to the rebuttal testimony to maybe allow the chair to grant additional time if public testimony is excessively long.
I know on additional rules of quasi-judicial and annexation hearing, on the very bottom of that B, it says grant of additional time, so it is in that piece.
Okay.
yeah, and I think we could add a little bit of clarification to add applicant, like witnesses and applicant, additional time to testify. I think that would clarify that a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that is a good point, because there are some times that you're going to need more than 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You already do that, though. Now it'll be legal.
We can grant additional time if necessary. Yes.
Well, and that's currently in our existing procedures as well. So some of these are we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just sort of wordsmithing and making a couple changes. So the chair still has the ability to kind of manage the meeting under the existing procedures.
And thanks to our new app, we're able to monitor the time,
Color.
color-coded. I appreciate that. Anything else?
Nothing.
So this is moving on to City Council for final review and approval. So at this point, it's my understanding we have no motion. There is no action item necessary.
Nope.
I appreciate you keeping us in the loop. Very good.
I do think we stayed in green all night, so.
Very nice.
Actually, I would actually, now that I'm looking at it,
I think we're past that.
It is listed as an action item.
Okay.
So I would just do perhaps a motion to recommend approval.
I move to a recommend approval.
I second.
Been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Hamby.
Yes.
That was a test. Everybody passed. It was an action item. Otherwise, we'd had a Zoom meeting on Friday. Commission comments, anything for the good of the order? Again, appreciate all of your volunteer service. It is greatly appreciated, and if there is nothing else, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We're gonna hang.